Hello and welcome to another episode of In Real Life with Edrina. My name is Edrina. I am the owner and accountant here at Accounting by Edrina. And today, in today's episode of In Real Life, we are talking with Melissa Miles. Melissa Miles is a composer, performer, and a teacher. So I am so excited that she's here. Welcome, Melissa, to In Real Life with Edrina.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me to join you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to start off right off the bat asking you, what is it that drives you? Like, what is something that keeps you doing composing, teaching, and performing?
Yeah, a couple things. It's a huge de-stressor for sure. When I'm stressed out, just sitting down, playing the piano or improvising, just as a way to relieve stress. And it's also a creative outlet, obviously. Even though I do it for work, it's something that's been a big part of my life, pretty much my whole life. And it just is very calming and just my biggest creative outlet. So, and another thing I love on the teaching side of it, helping my students reach their goals. I have a variety of students and they all have a lot of different goals, but I love to tailor their lessons to them and really ask them at their first lesson, what is your biggest goal in learning this instrument? And I have several adult students, which is really cool. And some of them, you know, for example, their goal might be just to be able to play for Elise on the piano. And so I think about, okay, what are the things that are going to help them best reach their goal when I'm teaching them. I really want to tailor it to them and their goals. I've had other students who play violin and really want to work on improvising or playing by ear so they can play better at church. And so that would be another example of a goal I've helped students reach.
Excellent. I love that you brought up just the idea of helping others reach their goals, because that's really in alignment with what I feel like I'm doing, because as an accountant and bookkeeper, I'm always asking my clients, like, okay, what is our goal here? What is the next step that we need to take in order to reach those goals? So very much in alignment with what you're talking about. So in this episode, we're talking specifically about the challenges of being self-employed. And I know, like, for a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners who are listening, they have to do it all. They have to wear all of the hats. And so I just wanted to bring that up as the first topic and see your thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge of being self-employed. I've found outside of the actual stuff I have to do for work, outside of the music stuff, I also have to wear a lot of other hats like you were talking about. I realized how important it would be for me to have a website, for example, but not being able, starting out, to afford someone to design my website. I took on that challenge of doing it myself. And I'm really thankful to have found a company like Wix that has a lot of cool templates that are easy to use for people like me who don't have experience using code and don't really understand SEO. So that was super helpful for me. I know there are other websites like that too. I know Weebly is another one I dabbled in for a little bit. But yeah, definitely thankful for that. But it was a huge learning curve and something that doesn't come naturally to me, something not related to my music stuff that I have to do for work.
Yeah, it's very like, even when I started my business and needed to make sure that I had a website, that was the thing that was having me like pull my hair out the most, because I was just like, I don't understand this language. Like, it has its own language and there are like specific things that you have to do in order to make it work. And it's just like, okay, this is really confusing.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been a blessing, discovering Wix for sure. But been a big challenge. And another challenge I've encountered is the marketing side of it. As an introvert, I think that's particularly challenging for me. I'm not someone who loves putting myself out there and having to try to sell my work. It's not something I love doing. It's not something that comes naturally, like I said, but it is something I have to do in order to be able to get more students and get more composition or performing work. And so yeah, that's something I have been growing in for sure, but something, I've had to do as a small business owner who is self-employed. Something really helpful though has been asking friends for help too. For example, I have a few friends who are great writers, and I've been able to run stuff by them, have them proofread, like my website bio, for example. I had a friend proofread that. That was super helpful, make sure there aren't huge grammatical errors in there. I also have another friend who's a talented sound engineer, great at recording, mixing, and mastering. That's something I've had to learn as a musician, but not something that I'm nearly as good at as him, and not something that comes naturally to me. And so it's really helpful to have friends who are able to help you with things you're not great at. And with him, what's kind of cool is we have this barter system where I record string parts for him, and then he in turn will mix and master stuff for me for free. So it's a cool exchange. It's a win-win for both of us, which is awesome.
I absolutely love the idea of bartering with other people, and making sure that you're having another person talk into kind of like what you're working on. And I do that a little bit with a couple entrepreneur friends as well. So I hear you on that, and I think that's so great when entrepreneurs can kind of come together and support each other with their various tasks that they have to do.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I know that, like, being a self-employed individual, we don't have the typical paycheck. We don't have just on that pay schedule that a typical W-2 employee actually is like reliant on. And so I want to talk a little bit about the value of time, especially when we're working on large projects and kind of maybe even working overtime, but not necessarily getting paid for that.
Yeah, that's definitely something you should expect to do if you're a small business owner that's self-employed. You likely will have, like I mentioned, outside things from what you actually are doing as your job, like building the website, even doing accounting stuff, marketing, stuff that you even sending out cold emails. I've sent out a lot of those. Just advertising my composing and what I do musically, and then just the stuff with my job but outside of like my actual job, like emailing parents. It's always a lot of back and forth emailing with them, so all of that stuff takes a lot of time, and it's not stuff I'm paid for, but it is stuff that's vital to my business. And so just knowing I have to be smart with the hours that I spend doing anything, just because obviously we only have so much time in a week.
Yep.
And we can't just spend all this extra time and not be getting something, not spending time in a smart way.
Yep.
So
work smarter, not harder, right? That's the phrase.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so something I learned, kind of learned the hard way, was to charge a fair but competitive amount. It's tempting to want to be really cheap, and yes, you're gonna likely get a lot of business that way, but you're also likely not going to have time to do everything you need to do and do it well, and you're also probably going to get burnt out quick.
Well, I would even add to that, because I feel like if we say yes to the free things and say no to the things that aren't paying us, I think there's a real kind of like an imbalance that happens. because then you end up expending all your energy on this free thing when you could have actually been making a living. You could have been earning some money there.
Yeah, and an example of doing something for free that I learned from but regretted doing at the time was I knew someone who asked me to arrange and orchestrate and then record a couple songs she had written. And I was excited about it, but she, didn't say anything about payment, so I assumed it wouldn't be paid, which it wasn't. But I agreed to do it, and after finishing the first song and spending like 10 plus hours working on it, I realized, okay, this was probably not a good thing to agree to do. I'm not getting something for doing this. Not that you can't do stuff for friends, occasionally or whatever, do things for free, but for the most part I try to not do things for free. A friend of mine showed me an article recently, and the idea of it was, not to work for free. Your product or your talent has value, and so it doesn't mean you have to get cash for what you're doing, but whether it's a bartering system, like, me, I talked about my friend who's a sound engineer, how we share our different abilities. He records for me, or he mixes and masters for me, and I record string parts for him. We're both getting something in that, even though cash isn't exchanged. And so that is definitely a win-win. And I think also, exposure as an artist is a huge thing. Maybe you have an opportunity and you're not going to be paid for it, but you are going to get exposure. Your songs are going to get heard in front of a lot of people. So that can be a big thing too. So I think getting one of those things, whether it's cash, exposure, or you're bartering, sharing talents with someone, those are all valuable things to get from the work that you put in.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you labeled it, cash, exposure, and bartering, because I was thinking there are instances where maybe an entrepreneur does do something for free, but it's because maybe there's an organization that the entrepreneur is working with, and that is kind of considered like a volunteer type of thing. I know that I sit on a board, and so I consider that my volunteer time. And then I was working with another organization the past few months, and that was, in my mind, I was considering that volunteer time. So, like those kinds of things, those opportunities, you have to weigh, like, okay, do I have the time to do this? Or do I not? Am I going to get exposure? Those are all the factors that go into something like this.
Yeah, and I think knowing too, it's okay to say no to things. For me, I love saying yes to things, especially if they're good things. It's hard for me to turn down something that seems like a good opportunity, but really thinking, is this a good opportunity? Is this something that the time that I spend on this or what I'm getting from it is going to be really valuable to me?
Yeah, absolutely. So as entrepreneurs, we all know that the world is sort of inundated with all sorts of competition, and I know for me, a lot of people who find me, they're just like, I just don't know who to trust because I need someone to do my bookkeeping or accounting or whatever the case may be. And, there is a lot of competition out there for bookkeepers and accountants, but also for musicians. So let's talk a little bit about the competition.
Yeah, so the arts is definitely competitive, but really any field you're going into, you're going to have competition. And in order to combat that, thinking about what is it that makes me unique, what makes me stand out from all the thousands of talented violinists in the world, or whatever it is that's your area. And so one example, I may not be the best violinist in the world, or I may not be as good as this violinist, let's say, but I can improvise and I can play by ear. And I've gotten opportunities that way just because I can improvise. So that's something that I have going for me that not every violinist can do. So thinking about that kind of a thing is really helpful. I've also encountered situations where there's a ton of violinists, but no violists. I also play viola, so that is something working in my favor as well.
Are we going to mention that you play the mouth trumpet too?
So that, unfortunately, it's not in high demand, but yes, I do play the mouth trumpet. So if you want to see that, go to, actually, do I have it on YouTube? I'll try to put it up on YouTube. There is a video of me playing it. So.
Excellent. I'm sure people would love to see that.
Yes. But yeah, and another example in the area of teaching, I've gotten a lot of adult students who say that I was the first teacher who would take adult students. And so being open to maybe things that are a little uncomfortable, I think it's daunting to think, oh, I'm teaching someone older than myself sometimes, but being open to that, and I feel like those have been some of my favorite students, and it's been really inspiring to see them and their growth. A lot of them are super serious about learning. It's something they've always wanted to do. And for me, I actually am also an adult learner. I'm learning cello. And so it's been inspiring for me to see them and their instruments, and has inspired me in turn in my learning of the cello, which has been cool.
I love that. Always keep learning. Never stop learning. I absolutely love that. I try to do the same thing with keeping myself up to date with all sorts of things. QuickBooks is always updating their stuff. So I try to always make sure that I'm on, the monthly webinar and continuing my learning as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, continuing learning is very important. I think it's easy as a teacher, and sometimes I'm tempted to just be like, oh, I feel confident in music. I mostly have beginning students. I don't need to keep, challenging myself in that area. But that's not a good mindset. So being a lifelong learner is really gonna help you and inspire you, and has done so for me. So
yeah, that's great. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being a part of In Real Life with Edrina. And I was going to ask you if there's any way that people can kind of see your stuff. Is there a YouTube channel that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I have a few different things on my YouTube channel. I recently have been working on some different covers of stuff, especially since I learned cello. It's been fun kind of being able to play music with myself. And sound like a full orchestra, or sound like a string quartet.
Nice.
So one thing I would encourage you to check out would be my Downton Abbey cover. It was a lot of fun making that. I think Edrina will link that. But either way, my YouTube channel is just Melissa Miles Music, as is my Instagram and my Facebook. So Melissa Miles Music. And if you want to contact me, also melissamilesmusic@gmail.com is my email address. So
perfect.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, that's great. Well, I know that there's a lot of really helpful information in this video, and I'm so grateful that we were able to sit down and have a chance to talk through some of these things, because everyone has to deal with this when they are starting out, when they're starting their business, when they're an entrepreneur, or even when they're starting a side hustle. So I think this is going to be really beneficial for all of these people. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Yeah, thanks, Edrina.